Next up, we have joining us the president and the CEO of AME. I know, now that we're, I think, coming out of this COVID crisis, everyone can start getting excited about being at Roundup again in January. So here to tell us more about what the plans are from AMEBC perspective, and also how she sees this sector shaping up into next year, we have Kendra Johnston. Kendra is president and CEO of the AME. She is a professional geologist and a senior mining executive with over 15 years of experience in various facets of the mineral exploration and mining industry. She spent most of her career working in BC and in the Yukon. She's a passionate industry advocate for responsible mineral exploration. And before joining AME, Kendra was the president of Independence Gold, a BC and Yukon explorer with increasing levels of responsibility from project geologist all the way up to president. She has also sat on numerous boards and currently sits on the board of directors for Britannia Mine Museum. Kendra, wonderful to see you virtually. I miss seeing you in person. You're always at all the key events of the year on the mining calendar. How have you been coping without being able to get out as much as you normally do?
Oh, probably about the same as you've been coping. We're both at all of those events, and I think really enjoy getting out and seeing people and shaking hands and connecting with the various folks around this industry. So certainly been missing that, but so nice to be able to do things like this and connect with the virtual audience. So thank you for having me. It's great to see you as well.
Wow, it's really nice to have you here, Kendra. Why don't we start there with the obvious one? What is the plans for Roundup in January?
Yeah, so Roundup is going to be live this year, and we're super excited to have it back in person. However, it's going to be online as well, and I think that's really going to be the future of Roundup going forward forevermore. We'll see how it goes this year. It's certainly a test year, but I think, based on the fact that we did the virtual conference last year and it worked relatively well, it's going to become an integral part going forward. So we're at the Vancouver Convention Centre West this year. Nice, big, beautiful building over the water and a very sort of earthy feel to that building. So great for an exploration conference. So things are going well. We're really looking forward to welcoming everybody back in person this year.
Now, Kendra, for the people that physically are going to be at the show, I would imagine they kind of know what to expect. Will it have a similar feel as previous roundups?
It will have a similar feel. There's obviously things that are going to be different given the COVID situation. There will be vaccine passports in place and mandatory masking around the show. But in terms of all of the technical sessions, the core shack that everybody's come to know and love, the project generators, the prospectors tent, the gathering place, all of those pieces are going to be back just as they have been in past years. Unfortunately, the only piece that we're not able to do this year is our BC night, but we found a little bit of a workaround and we're putting in a daily BC happy hour in its place. So still finding a way to make sure that we have that time to get out and socialize.
Fantastic. Miners and explorers go well together with a happy hour. I think that's an elegant solution. So Kendra, why don't you tell us how you're seeing this state of the industry shape up? I mean, obviously with a BC focus, that goes without saying. Can you talk us through what you see as major trends heading into next year?
Absolutely. It's been a really fascinating couple years with COVID for us here in BC. We have a whole lot of the exploration community right here in Vancouver and across the province based here. Their head offices are here. And that really meant that throughout COVID, there were a lot of extra people who stayed close to home and were exploring close to home. And so the last 2 years have been really strong years for British Columbia. Last year, there was $422 million spent on mineral exploration in the province. This year, it looks, I don't want to jinx it in any way, but it looks like we're going to be tracking for approximately what our record year was, which was 2012 and $680 million. So last year there was 991 million meters of drill core drilled in the province, and we're well over 1 million meters this year, and we still have a month and a half to go. So things have been really booming, really busy and excited, and there's just been a lot of energy across the province, and so that's been really nice to see. And yet at the same time, we've dealt with some really big conversations this year, right? There's been a number, or the past 2 years anyways, there's been, a conversation around safety and going into communities, and what that looks like, and how mineral explorers can adapt and help communities in a lot of cases. And there's been some really big social conversations happening, everything from Black Lives Matters to diversity and inclusion conversations. So I really think that like last year at Roundup, all of those conversations are going to be touched on again. I think we'll see those as themes, along with the obvious of ESG, critical minerals and metals, all of those things. Climate change obviously becoming a big one as well. So lots to talk about, and certainly no shortage.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to pick your brain a little bit more on the returning to 2012 levels. It's particularly interesting because unlike in 2012, when equity valuations for miners and explorers were still running extremely hot, that was right before the sell-off. This time around, interesting, right? I mean, we had that pullback through the spring and summer. I mean, gold is doing better, copper is doing well. We haven't really seen gold valuations, though, get to where they need to be. What's your take on what's going on here? Just looking at the equity valuations, we maybe wouldn't expect that kind of activity.
Yeah, I think there's a few things at play. The commodity prices, for one, like you say, there was a little bit of a pullback, but overall they've remained relatively strong when we look back historically. Gold's always been that safe haven, but copper for British Columbia has been such a big component, and the copper prices have stayed really quite strong over the last few years. We've also seen incredible amounts of flow through happening towards the end of years, both last year, 2020, and the previous year in 2019, which really led into that boost for 2020. I suspect this year will be no different, and we'll see that over the next 6 to 8 weeks. But I think there's a number of things. And then, like I said, just that proximity of staying close to home and being able to get out on the ground and wanting to spend dollars closer to home means that they're not spending dollars necessarily to travel to other places, that it can stay locally and go into some of those local economies.
Excellent. Well, when it's a province that's blessed with that much mineral wealth, that makes a lot of sense from that angle as well. Are we seeing a big shift in? So, you referenced how many meters are being drilled. Do we have kind of the breakout of how by commodity? Like, are we seeing that in the drilling that's being done, that we're moving more towards copper at the expense of gold, or what's the trend there?
No, they're staying relatively stable over past years. There's always a little bit of fluctuation, and it kind of balances back and forth between copper and gold over the years, but not a drastic shift this year necessarily. We are seeing a shift regionally in some of the area plays. So, the Golden Triangle, of course, remains a really hot area for exploration, but we're also seeing a lot of exploration this year over in the Toodoggone region. So it's starting to spread out perhaps a little bit more from a regional aspect, but still very much focused on gold and copper. And of course, I would be remiss to not mention the amount of coal in the province as well, and what that brings to the bottom line here in BC.
Excellent. Coming back to the roundup, Kendra, you've highlighted, the core shack still there, slight changes on the BC night, but what are some of the key reasons that people need to either get out or tune in virtually? Is there certain panels that you're particularly excited about? What do you think some of the keys are?
So hard to pick one panel. I think for me, one of the highlights this year is going to be the core shack. It's always a highlight, but for the first time ever, we have actual real daylight coming into the core shack, which only the geologists get really excited about, but that's a thing for us. We also this year have the 10th year of the gathering place happening. It's so incredibly hard to believe it's been 10 years since we started that, but that's going to be a really special event and a bit of a kickoff. We've got some fantastic keynotes lined up. Christine St. Clair is going to be our opening conference keynote this year, so really excited to have her and have that conversation of the similarities of going after a gold Olympic medal versus going after gold in the ground, and the dedication, perseverance that it takes to get there. So some really neat topics, I think, with her. And then looking at the technical sessions, they're all really strong. We've got a phenomenal committee that puts their heart and soul into finding fantastic speakers for us. So really, really hard to choose one, but I suppose the precious metals is always a favorite of mine for this audience. The finance session is always a popular one as well. And I think the ESG session, just with the themes and the conversations happening around the community these days, that will be a big one as well.
Excellent. So you created a nice picture of what people can expect to when if they can be there physically, and I will be there physically. I'm really looking forward to it. For the virtual experience, can you parse that out a little bit for our delegates? What can a virtual participant, how can they expect to engage?
Yeah, great question. So we're going to use the Whova platform, which I'm sure many folks are familiar with. And all of our presentations will be live streamed, available on demand afterwards for up to 6 months. So questions and answers will all happen through that virtual platform, whether you're in person or virtual. All the questions and answers will come through that platform. So really sort of great opportunity to bring the two audiences together to interact and have those conversations. We also have everybody who's in our exhibit hall will also have a virtual booth within the virtual platform. So anybody who's just taking part online will be able to sort of virtually walk around those booths, talk to people, open up chat boxes, and interact with the folks who are live in person at the conference, as well as those who are sitting at home at their desks and maybe bouncing back and forth between the virtual environment and the in-person environment. But the goal really is to have that sort of cross communication and conversation happening between in-person and online delegates.
Okay. Now, Kendra, you referenced flow-throughs. We know in the Canadian, this is a global audience, so flow-throughs are a critical life force, really, for the exploration industry in Canada. It allows expenses to flow through to shareholders. That's always at the top of mind for the exploration industry, securing those. They're secured for the foreseeable future. What would be some of the key issues within a BC context that the exploration industry is looking for support from the government on?
Yeah, so our main issue right now is timeliness of permitting, and we've made some great strides on that just in the last couple of months, and I suspect we might see some announcements around roundup time for that. So that will be exciting, but definitely some resources going into permitting and hopefully speeding that process up a little bit. Again, flow through, and here in BC we have a BC mineral exploration tax credit as well as a flow through tax credit on top of the federal flow through tax credit. So fighting and advocating for increases to both of those as well. They were made permanent 2 years ago, but there was a recommendation from the Mining Jobs Task Force to increase both of those. And then really the other big one right now for us is sort of twofold. It's really based in public geoscience, making sure that the science is being done right across the province, everything from mapping to new innovative ideas and techniques being tested out. And just making sure that that data is not only being collected, but then being communicated out to the membership and the explorers at large across the province. So that then also rolls into all of our land use planning decisions that are going on across the province. And so that right now, of course, is related to all the negotiations going on with First Nations. It's also, all the wildlife areas, all the park areas. So there's a lot going on, and that public geoscience piece really fits in nicely and is important to all of those pieces, because of course mineral potential is a hard thing to place a value on when you really don't know what's there yet.
Oh, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, Kendra, you're doing a wonderful job guiding AME. It's excellent to see what you're doing there, fighting hard for the exploration industry. I look forward to seeing you in person in January. So best of luck with the conference and with all your endeavors in the coming year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you as well.
Cheers, Kendra. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.